we'll start with Sarah, and I hope that you do a little, I know you have, I don't want to use time by going through long introductions like you just had to hear about me. They're in the program, but if there's anything relevant, you can also make that part of your presentation. Okay?
All right, good morning, everyone. So what should I tell you that's relevant about myself? I don't know anything about this. I don't know how I ended up on this stage. But look, I'm and we have slides. This is great. So listen, we are each going to talk for a short while. I work for an organization called COWS. Oh. Whoops. Missed the cow. Anyways, it's okay, my malfunction. Okay, so I'm not going to tell you a lot about cows. You can find us online at cows.org. We've been working in the green space for a long, long time, and I won't take up my precious time with telling you about our accomplishments. I'm here this morning to give you some straight talk about the green economy and about the clean energy workforce development that we do within that, and to give you sort of three messages and a big picture. And what I would have up here right now, if I had done this correctly, is a big picture of a green cow, which is always a good starter. But so just keep that in your head throughout this talk. So I want to say in 2008, and I'm riffing a little bit on what Jane said to us yesterday morning, at sort of the beginning of the peak of the green jobs wave, we wrote at COWS a series of commandments for the green economy. We didn't call them commandments when we published them. There were 10 plus 2, and I just will tell you that we started out with know thy labor market. And number 2 was thou shalt use data. And I think that those two things still really apply, but I'm going to make it a little bit simpler and a little bit more uplifting today when I tell you my, my 3 things. So the first thing is just to remember that green is good. I think we've had this beaten out of us over the past 4 years, right? And I think it's no surprise to anyone in this room that there's tremendous disillusionment, you know, in Congress, in workforce development areas, in colleges, in unions, in communities with the promise of green jobs. But I would encourage you to not buy into the backlash. There was some hype, that is true, but green jobs were not a myth. I just want to remind you what we all know, that nobody said green jobs were going to arrive like manna, right? And we launched our collective enthusiasm about green at the exact moment that the country underwent a tremendous, terrible economic crisis, right? The worst since the Great Depression, which had nothing to do with green, right? It had everything to do with a housing bubble, with a financial meltdown, with catastrophic collapse of financial instruments, right? So somehow mixed up in that, we threw out the baby with the bathwater, right? So people think that, oh, that green jobs thing failed. No, the economy failed. Actually, if you look at the stats, you know, green sectors grew faster than any other sector during the recession, but nothing was growing. So I think it's important not to mix those things up. And it's also important to remember that there was a lot of hype, but really all the numbers about green jobs were based on potential. It was based on an old argument, which still makes sense, which is that building a clean energy economy is in no way a job killer, right? We can create jobs. We can train a workforce to do it. We can have a 21st century economy that is green and that lifts us all up. I still think that is true. But the problem is we had complete lack of policy to drive any of the markets which develop those jobs. So the failure of the demand side is not a collapse of green jobs. It simply means that we need to work harder and think harder about putting the policies in place that allow the kind of economic development that will carry us forward. So that I just want to throw out there, as well as in the way those two things came together, there is a mismatch, right, between the money put on the street to train people and the jobs that were created because of the way that the economic crisis unrolled. So, oh, there's my cow. Okay. So that's us. That's my straight talk about the economy. But let me move on to my second point. Green is good, but we really face some challenges, right? And none of these are new to you, but I think it's important to enumerate them and just to get them out in the room. And the first is we live in a new economic reality, right? And I don't want to talk today about tremendous inequality. I don't want to talk about the reality of the really disturbing separation between productivity and wages in this country. I think the most important thing to us today is that we still are in an anemic recovery. which has been marked primarily by the return of large numbers of low-wage jobs in the service sector and by long-term unemployment, unprecedented lengths of long-term unemployment. The second thing that we have to keep in mind, and this is not meant to take us down, this is meant to remind us what heroes we are for trying to work in this environment, is climate change, right? I don't think I need to talk today about 2 degrees. I don't need to talk about hurricanes. I know many of you probably come from states where possibly your government has made it illegal to use the word sea level rise. So that's just something to think about. That's an environment in which we are all working. The other reality is that we still need to build renewable energy and energy efficiency, and that's what I'm referring to in a small sense when I say the clean energy economy. And right now, you know, NREL, I don't know how many of you saw the report that NREL did this year that showed it modeled renewable energy development by 2050 and showed that we could actually get there, and it is possible, and it's not pie in the sky dream, and it's a wonderful thing, and the visualizations are great. But right now, the reality is we're at this, right? We're at a tiny segment of the energy economy in this country, and that has to get bigger. And this is the thing that I think really affects our thinking about jobs and training, right? Like the solar job census came out. It's great. There's tremendous growth. 100,000, more than 100,000 jobs, right? But that's going from a very, very small base. In this country, there is a 9 million job deficit to even get us back to where we were before the recession, right? That is a huge jobs deficit. We are not going to be the answer to that. We are going to be part of the answer to that. So I think that's something to think about when we talk about jobs and training. I think the other thing to talk about is that there's also what I would call a democracy deficit. And by that I don't mean, you know, voter suppression and that kind of stuff. What I mean is that the political reality is that I think for a lot of us, a lot of people in our communities and in our schools and in our workplaces have lost their faith in the capacity to make change, right? In the capacity to influence positively the direction of the institutions where they work and learn. And so part of our mission together, I think, is to rebuild faith in that kind of democracy and to give people a chance to engage in a positive economy and a positive learning experience. So that's a lot. That's a tall order. But I want to remind you that we know how to do this. This is the best part. We know how to do this. Yes, we do. And I don't want to say yes, we can, and I don't want to say yes, we did. I want to say yes, we do, because we know how to do this, and we have to keep doing it. We can't just set up some programs and let them run. We have to keep doing this. And I think it's important to think about, in this context, resilience. We use the word resilience a lot in climate adaptation. We use it in economic development. We use it in engineering. We use it in a lot of terms. But I think it applies to education and training also. Because we live in a world that's marked now by uncertainty, right? Uncertainty about climate change. We know that bad things are going to happen. We're not sure where and when. Uncertainty about our political future. Uncertainty about our economy. And I think that the response to that is a certain kind of resilience and nimbleness and the ability to be flexible and adapt to situations as they arise. It's very hard, but all of you are working in institutions which have showed a remarkable sort of nimbleness. So if you feel like you're going crazy, you're not. You're doing the right things. I think that what I want to show you now is that at COWS we've spent about 2 decades thinking really hard about workforce development, its relationship to industry and economic development, and putting people to work in education and training. And so we, over the past year, spent many, many agonizing hours of research and development and number crunching, boiling this down into a pretty complicated formula. Those of you who have heard me talk about this in Wisconsin have already seen this. It's a little bit complicated, so I was hesitant to bring it today, but you're a pretty sophisticated audience. So this is the secret formula. Okay, this comes in many constellations. There is no one right way to do it, but all of these things are key, and the way that we work with intermediaries who balance these things are important, right? So we need to think about workers and the institutions that represent them, and students also, job seekers. We need to think about firms and industries and businesses and how we connect to the employer side of the equation. And we need to think about training systems, right? And all of those things work together in all kinds of ways that are way more complicated than it appears here. But I think we make this stuff really complicated. We add lots of jargon and then we don't understand each other. It comes down to this. And I would say that in this country there are many, many, many cases of people doing 2 of these well, but not so many of everyone doing all of these. So if you think about it, there are places where if you just have workers and firms interacting and you don't have training systems, that's kind of what we get. We have no decent upskilling, people can't find decent jobs, employers aren't finding workers that they need. If you just have workers and training systems, and we do a lot of that, we have beautifully trained workers for jobs that don't exist, or beautifully trained workers with skills that employers don't want. So we have to include industry in this. And the other is that if you just have firms and training systems, and we forget about the workers and the students, then in many cases you could imagine a situation in which we are funneling workers into really crappy dead-end jobs because we're not thinking about their needs as well. So I think that when we do this balancing act, and there are many ways to do this and many models, that we need to just keep coming back to basics and remember all three of those things. I would say that, the thing about workforce development is that it is not, in fact, rocket science. And it's not even particularly green. We know how to do this. We need to work on building an infrastructure to organize the demand side. This looks like sector strategies, industry partnerships. You don't have to do this alone. Many of you have these in place already or can work with people in your states and communities who are doing this. We need supply side innovation. This is where you really excel. Right? This looks like bridge programs and career pathways and stackable credentials and content integration and certification and credentials that make sense in the labor market. That's the supply side innovation. But we also, I would argue, have to improve outcomes at the bottom of the labor market. And this means when you build links to employers, it's important, I would argue, not to just link to any employer, but to link to the best employers. Because that's how you serve workers, that's how you serve students, and that's how you build a clean energy economy that is safe and robust and makes sense and can be built here at home. So,
come back.
Come back?
Come back to our seats.
Okay, I have one concluding thing. I'll say my concluding. Sorry. Okay, so this is the thing. This is my shoot. I really overran my time. Well, I just want to leave you on this thing. This is the Emerald City, right? This is the vision we had. We can still get here, but I want to say one comment on what Alexis said yesterday, which was a fascinating discussion. But I'm trained as a labor historian, so when he raised up Lowell as a green model, it gave me chills, and not in a good way. Because to me, Lowell is not a sign of a green manufacturing textile city built on hydro, right? It is an industry built on the backs of women working in terrible conditions for long hours and no pay. That is not the kind of green economy that I want to be a part of. I don't think you want to be a part of it either. But the good lesson to take away from Lowell is it's also the place where workers began to organize to say, you know what? We don't have to do it this way. We can build an economy that works. We can do it together. We can have a voice in that change. And that, I think, is the lesson here, is right? Yes, we can. Yes, we do. All right, thanks.
All right. Wow. Sorry. You get an idea of how hard my job is. You don't really want to stop them. Next, we're going to have Debra Rowe get up and speak to you for 10 minutes.
They gave me 10 minutes and they told me not to say too much because I sound like a fire hose. So here we go, okay? So how many of you are from community colleges? Raise your hand, please. How many of you are full-time faculty at community colleges? Raise your hand. How many of you are part-time and want to be full-time? Raise your hand. Okay, how many of you are from nonprofits? And how many of you are from businesses? Thank you, just customized my comments. So I've been a professor of renewable energy technology and energy management for 33 years at Oakland Community College. This is my fourth implosion of the green economy. So I have a barn full of tools that you can use to get through this. I'm sorry for those of you who came in with expectations of this was all going to be easy with exponential growth. Welcome to the construction industry as well as the renewable energy industry for the last 33 years. Those of you who have been with me the whole time, we know how to do this, guys. We know, and gals. Okay, so I'm also run the Detroit Area Green Sector Skills Alliance, which has been great because they're actually paying me money to do the stuff I need to do in my job as a renewable energy professor anyway. I have 3 main points for you today. The first is we have to increase enrollment. How many of you are concerned about enrollment? Raise your hand. Thank you very much. Secondly, we need policy strategies to create exponential growth of green jobs. And third, we need coping strategies, having fun while getting it done. And I loved everything Sarah said and agree with every piece. But let's look at increasing enrollment. Become friends with your PRR office any way that you can, so you don't have to get approval for every single PR thing you do, but also work with them. Create lots of angles to get coverage by newspapers, radio, TV. And there are lots of angles that I can share with you of how to do that. We can get free media. You know, they put students on hold when they call the college. Make sure that they have information on your program on that on-hold tape. Little secrets about how you increase enrollment. Secondly, work with student life. Student Affairs in this country is committed to sustainability education. They have created the learning outcomes that have gone international for sustainability ed. They're the president, the incoming president, 2 past presidents, they can set precedents for you. And Student Life can create a green speaker series for your community, and that you go in there and pitch your program. Third, work with student groups. Create them if they don't exist. And also, Student Affairs, they can help you create these student groups, because you don't have a lot of time to do this, to create energy fairs, positive futures fairs. We have task lists, timelines for you on how they can do it and get it done. And guess what? It creates PR for your program. Hang up energy tips around the campus. The administration will love it because it reduces energy bills, and other people love it because they see it as the right thing to do. You can still cash in on the cachet of green. On the bottom of every single one, there's a pitch about your program. And then create a virtual and self-guided tour. See what we did. You can go to our website about that. Benefits of increasing enrollment. Well, that's pretty obvious, right? A more stable program, but also you increase market demand, and that's essential. We need to grow the green economy. Sorry, I know many of you, especially the newbies, like you said, we told you that the green economy was just going to exponentially grow and all you had to do was fit into it, but that's not what happened. And we are in a unique and important position to help grow that green demand. For businesses, for more job placements, for existing employees, you can provide upskilling opportunities that grow the businesses and grow the jobs. So it's not just about bringing students into your classroom. Outreach to businesses that aren't green yet. Show them how to go green. I can give you the little seminar outline that you share with them. You can use our PowerPoints. Create open houses in your labs. Seminars for the public, for business owners. Use trade associations, Chamber of Commerce's, and lots of other groups to pull people in, because you're in a unique and important position not only to create the workforce of the future, but also to educate the customers of the future. So we did a whole webinar on this because it's such a big question nowadays, and the American Association of Community Colleges with the National Wildlife Federation Green Forest Initiative, and it's taped, and you can go there and you can watch it. Okay, second main point, policy. Wish it was done. Sorry, it's not done. It got through the House. It didn't get through the Senate. So 1 week of each of your courses, at least part of that work should be on policies. To turn out these workers and have them not be aware of the policies is to turn them out uneducated. It's not just the technical stuff they need to learn. We are there to help you. The American Association of Community Colleges has created an action community to grow green jobs through policy and civic engagement. So I noticed that there was a mailing list here of who's here. If you're not on that list and you want to know about this, give me your card. If you are on that list and you want to opt out, then come and give me your card and say, opt me out, because otherwise you're going to get an invitation to see how you can bring this into your classroom, educate the public through using student affairs staff, have your president and governmental affairs office involved if you want, and engage student groups. 4 key target audiences as well as businesses in your community to get those policies passed for the exponential growth of green jobs. Put it onto your college agenda of your sustainability or environmental committee. How many of you have sustainability or environmental committees at your colleges? A bunch of you, and you got champions there. Build coalitions so that they will stand up and scream if they start to talk about shutting down your program. By the way, did you know that the Pentagon calls climate change and getting off of fossil fuels a national security issue? And my favorite website on that, skepticalscience.com. Look, I teach heating and cooling guys. They come in as big climate deniers. This lists every single myth and gives the answers to it. There is a lot of talk at this conference about natural gas. Let me tell you something. Here's the facts. And I checked it yesterday with over 600 people on the Green Schools listserv who are scientists. We can't burn all that natural gas without going past tipping points in climate change. So this is not the answer, and now we can close up renewable energy shop and go home. And I know there are some people who've been talking about that in Washington as well as at colleges. If we burn all that natural gas, we will go past these tipping points and create catastrophic results that's going to make what happened in New York look little in comparison, and massive human suffering. So this is very urgent. Also recognize that fossil fuels get over $400 billion per year in subsidies, while renewable energies get around 60. So you know what? This we have to be cost-effective argument is bull. We have to get the policies in place and stop subsidizing the fossil fuel industry. So there's a key part of the answer there, and there's citations there for you. Second main point of policy, it fixes the market, yeah, but it also creates exponential growth of businesses and jobs. Exponential growth, not playing with the leftover pieces that the utilities and fossil fuel companies want to leave for us. And it also gives us opportunities to create a working democracy with civic engagement in policy, and grows and stabilizes your program. So we have lots of resources for you. Bill McKibben, who is a professor, has a Do the Math tour. Invite them to your community. And the American Association of Community Colleges has created a whole toolkit, not just for you, but for your students and student affairs. I know you're busy, but we can share it with others in your community. There's 350.org. Go to their website. It's awesome what they're doing all around the world. You want to excite students into getting into your program? Bring 350.org. And also look at our toolkit that we have for you, but also for students in the public. Listen, I've decided to do social media, so I've got a Twitter account now. It's @EnergyEducation. That's how old I am, that I could actually get that Twitter, right? So @EnergyEducation. Connect your students into that. That's connected to the American Association of Community Colleges and all of our seed work. And we'll keep them engaged so that they stay excited about your program. Take it to your political science professors, your sociology professors, your community-based organizations, and we'll help to gear them into your training programs. But you also got to communicate with us and make sure we know about them. Expertise is available on so many levels, and that's the third point. Ask for help. Be assertive with your asks. You are energy heroes. You are. And you deserve the help. And we've created structures of help for you so that you are not alone. And some of the resources, IREC, of course, stunning, the work at IREC. Also the SEED Center, which is the American Association of Community Colleges Sustainability Education and Economic Development Initiative, and it is for everybody, not just community colleges. It's for high schools, it's for nonprofit organizations, it's for businesses, all of us to grow this green economy. So, oops, let me go back. The benefits of doing this is less stress for you. I'm not adding to your to-do list. I'm helping you do it smarter. And I can show you how to make that happen, and so can other people at SEED. There's the SEED Center. I was amazed, all the people I talked to today who don't know about this. These are hundreds of resources, and yesterday too. Hundreds of resources: solar, wind, green building, energy efficiency, sustainable agriculture, food and fuels, etc. So my three main points. Increase your enrollment. Use policy strategies to create exponential growth of green jobs. And cope effectively. Have fun while you're getting it done. And if and when you get stuck, ask for help. So you have those cards on the table. What are you stuck on? Tell us where you're stuck right now. Everybody has different stuck points. Do you know at AACC we've had monthly calls of people, and once again, you don't have to be from community colleges to join. And the first 10 minutes is a presentation, and then we get some questions and answers. The last half hour is, I'm stuck, can you help? I've got a dean that's driving me crazy. Sorry, deans. I've got a business that's trying to take over. I got a micromanager. I need money for my program. How do you deal with PERC, etc.? We're here to help you.
Awesome, a revival in 10 minutes. Next we have Marcie Drummond, and you have a full 10 minutes. The clock is back up.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I'm coming over here, but then I have to sit back next to Sarah where you can see my ugly shoes next to her awesome shoes. So that's all I have to say about that. Okay, so I'm Marcie Drummond. I'm from a community college, so I'm very much, I have to give you that caveat. And I'm an administrator, so I'm on the dark side at the community college. And so I'm going to start with a dark slide. So that does, you know, kind of give you the context of many of my comments. But basically, from the very, very start, we tried to be very strategic about what we did with green and sustainability on our campus to the fourth power. And really what that means is you've got to be smart, you've got to be special, you've got to share this, and what you do has to be successful. And in the long run, this is what will keep your programs strong and sustainable. So let's talk about SMART first. And we always started this from a kind of a business, we use a lot of business nomenclature, is, you know, what is the market proposition for what you are offering, your program or your service? And so when we started our whole green initiative, and actually let me back up for a second, there are a couple things that got said yesterday that really resonated with some of the comments I wanted to make. In Alexis's comments, he said that Rosenfeld understood a very key, it has to be with SMART, that you have to get people on your spreadsheet or you will lose. And basically, Rosenfeld started the whole energy efficiency by talking about cost savings. He didn't start by saying, let's make better energy efficient refrigerators. He said, here's the market proposition for what I am talking about doing. And I think it's really important when we started green programs to really focus on that, as well as the new energy literacy principles that were talked about by the Department of Energy yesterday. Principle number 5 was energy decisions are influenced by economic, political, environmental, and social factors. So those are the market values you have to keep in mind. It's not just the bottom line about dollars, but what are the political, environmental, and social factors that help you make the business case for your programs and your services. For us as a community college, here were all the key markets, and think of market value as being very broadly defined, that we thought were very important to tap into when we developed our programs beyond sustainability, which is very, very important. I don't want to diminish this. But we really started with the social impact that we wanted to have. We saw that in the community we serve, it was very much a lagging community in every economy, and we saw this as an opportunity to leap over from being a lagging community to being the leader, and all of our citizens to be the leaders in the new green economy. We also saw it as an opportunity for our existing programs to regain relevance and reputation. We had been a sleeping giant, our college had been, and many of our programs had rested on their laurels and had not been seen as being adaptive to what were the needs of industry. We also saw it as an opportunity to re-engineer the way we do workforce development, and now it's become a way of re-engineering the way we do post-secondary education. And we also saw it was a way to increase post-secondary attainment, not only for the K-12 to the community college transition, but also from community colleges to the universities. We saw it as an opportunity to increase our transfer mission as well. So when we started our Green College Initiative, we started with a very much a market value approach. We looked at both trying to increase the demand side of the green economy as well as the supply side. So we did things like green buildings and practices. We did a lot of advocacy and outreach programs and raising awareness of sustainability in our community as well as with our students. And then we also worked on the demand side or the supply side with our workforce development programs. And we developed a green workforce development strategic plan that today has kept us sane and weathering many of the storms. We had a very detailed plan, and we've stuck with that plan, and because of that, I think we've had a lot of stability. The next thing is what makes you special. You have to set yourself apart from everybody else. So you have to find your niche, find your competitive advantage, and carve out your niche in this whole maraud of issues and things. So this is what we thought would make us special. Our commitment to making the most underserved and most diverse community in the nation the leaders in the green economy. We had this history of workforce development. And like I said, it had been, although it had been, we had a reputation of being a powerhouse for workforce development, we saw it as a way to make us, be able to set ourselves aside as the new generation for workforce development principles and practices. We had existing programs in our campus in every major industry sector, particularly those being greened. We had the ability to influence both the supply and the demand side. we had an array of program options that we could cobble together to be able to fit all the needs. We have not-for-credit, contract education, non-credit, credit and degree granting certificates and degree options, plus transfer programs. So we knew it would take this full array of options to be able to fill out our strategic plan. And then we also really had a lot of established relationships with businesses and industries. Although we did have to do some shifting, we had some that we could tap into right away, which was really our competitive advantage. And where we're located in LA is a huge competitive advantage for us. We're just right in the heart of where South Central LA meets downtown, right by Staples Center. So our actual geographic location is a huge competitive advantage for us. So you have to figure out what makes you special and figure out how you're going to capitalize on that. Then you have to, oops, I got to go back. Sorry, I'm missing a slide. Shared. Sarah said this is her triangle, I think. You can't do this alone. It takes a village to do this. You have to have a lot of strategic partnerships, both external to your organization as well as internal. You got to find those champions. They have those core skills and roles that you need to have played in this. So if you're not an expert in policy, make sure you partner with people who can do policy and advocacy. If enrollment is a problem, partner with your community-based organizations to do the outreach. You can't do this all by yourself. You have to have very strategic partnerships that are helping you do this. So what did we do? We took very much an industry sector approach. And we developed strategic collaboratives for every industry sector, and in those collaboratives we had business and industry, government, community-based organizations, the full gamut of the workforce development system, and each person at the table was there because of the critical role they could play, and each partner was there to strive to be the most excellent they could do at what they do. Instead of us all trying to be all things to all people, we focused on what is our niche, and let's do it the best we can and rely on each other to do the things that we are not best at. Internally, we had to get buy-in, our internal critical mass. And as a community college, there are ways you go about doing that. We put it in our strategic plan. We had the Green College Initiative. We had goals and objectives. Each VP was charged with certain we had accountability measures, and each VP had to make sure they were meeting those accountability measures. And so this developed a lot of buy-in. And one of the signs for us that we were reaching the critical tipping point of having an internal critical mass was when we started to develop our new strategic plan. Our old one had green in it. Everybody talked about when we started doing our visioning exercise and what we wanted to be known for, green was still the most common thing in sustainability that people mentioned. So that to me was a sign we had pretty much reached the tipping point internally. When we couldn't keep up with everything that was happening on the campus around sustainability, we knew we hit the tipping point as well. Successful. So everybody loves a successful program. So how do you measure success? This is where you have to go back to all those market value things you said in the beginning you were trying to accomplish. You have to measure success in all those ways. Back to getting people on your spreadsheet, there are two ways that'll do that, is what is the return on investment and what is your cost-benefit ratio. And community colleges, there are three types of programs: essential, supports essential, and value-added. Essential means you are part of the core mission of that college, and that's usually certificate and degree-bearing programs. If you're support essential, you're an option to that program, or you support those programs in some way. You're a feeder, you're an option, or you provide some sort of case management and student support services. Value-added means you have to pay for yourself. So if you're in the value-added column and you're reliant on soft funds, you have to figure out how you're going to move yourself to the support essentials column, or you're going to be struggling, and I think that's what a lot of people are faced with right now. So you can become a feeder to your other programs, you can become an option to your programs, or better yet, you actually get built into stackable certificates and degrees if you're not already seen as being that. So those are the four principles of being strategic. The last, similar to what the other speakers have talked about, right now we're trying to brave and weather the storms. And leadership matters. If you don't have leadership either within your organization or external, you need it both. It goes back to that village. You need to backup and make sure that your leadership is on board with you. And you need leadership that is willing to take risks and understand that the rewards may be long-term. And one way you can get leadership buy-in is to think about your market proposition and not always go to leadership saying, here's what I need you to do for me. You have to make that case that there is a lot of market value to what you do beyond just the cost-benefit ratios. Sustaining and focused in momentum, and it's not about the downturn in the economy, it's more about, because I said it takes a village and the market proposition and all those things, we have to be in a constant cycle of research, development, and implementation, and just keeping up with the momentum of that is difficult. Keeping up with your partnerships, sustaining focus amidst many competing interests and demand, and sustaining, for us, it's been sustaining the commitment to our underserved communities. And you also have to adapt in order to survive in this whole environment. So it goes back to that energy decisions are influenced by economic, political, and environmental and social factors, and those are changing all the time. So you have to be cognizant of those and adapt your programs so that they're always got that market relevance. Technological advances, in trying to become more on the balance sheet, moving yourself from being value added to essential and supports essential. And the last little comment I'd like to make is there are no quick solutions. And I'll go back to some of the opening comments that were made. Basically, you know, it's back to that President Clinton comment that was brought up yesterday. We have to be prepared to pay the price of time. We have to both think large and have a bias for action, even if it's small. And that goes back to Sarah's comments about we just got to keep moving forward and, you know, plugging away. And in the long term, we will all be successful. Thank you.